What's up everyone, it's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be featuring Dynomorphia, but before I begin, if you could happen to click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons, it would be greatly appreciated as it goes a long way in supporting the channel and shows me that you like content like this. Clicking on those notification bells would also mean a lot as they notify you when I upload on the channel. So for this first replay here, and the main point of it is to showcase the new card Dinomorphia intact, it reads when a monster effect is activated while you control a Dinomorphia card, pay half your life points to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that monster. Also, whenever you take battle damage this turn, the damage taken becomes half your life points at that time. During damage calculation while your life points are 2,000 or less, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this card from your graveyard. You take no battle damage from that battle. You can only activate one Dinomorphia intact per turn. So it's a monster negation to pair with your spell and trap negation, the Dinomorphia Sonic, and it helps against Ash Blossom, but I'm showing this replay in particular because Despia happens to be a awkward matchup for this deck where the Masquerade can really pile on when you're draining your own life points. So we're going to use the Theresia as we're going to be able to get a set for the Brood and then set the other 4 cards in hand as we're not playing around Evenly or Lightning whatsoever. It's not the format for it either though with Super Heavy Samurai, as what I wanted to show here is that we are able to hit the Cartesia off of the intact, which does stop a potential Masquerade play, and we're going to use the Kentragina now in order to bring out our Rex Term as our opponent is going to use the Magna Hut for the Diplos. We'll be able to get our Rex Term on board as that will block them from using the on-field effect. They'll go into the battle phase where they'll declare an attack and we'll use the Rex Term on attack declaration, draining their attack points so that they have to crash into us, and they'll scoop on that. For the second replay, we have some Dino on Dino action, and you'll see that we're on the rivalry, which is kind of important in this matchup because it means that they can't link away their Arco or whatever, but we're going to set 4 as they're going to get a draw here for a Droll, which isn't the greatest top deck, especially against Dinomorphia, and they're going to get themselves the Misc. We don't really care about the Misc because the Rex Term stops them from activating stuff, which has nothing to do with the monsters on board, besides the player not being able to activate them, but we're going to use the Frenzy now. We'll then go into our Kentragina as they're going to use the Arco to get themselves a pill. The baby will then trigger as we'll use the Kentragina now in order to banish the Frenzy for our Rex Term. They'll get themselves the Ovi while we do have 2k life points left. That'll get them the Search as we're going to use the rivalry now, and our opponent will reveal that they do need to out the Rex Term here, so they do get the Kaiju, and we do happen to have the Alert, which will be able to bring back our Rex Term, which is kind of what we wanted here. And now we can't be Kaiju'd, or our opponent can't use monster effects activated on the field, so we're now just going to use the Alert in the graveyard to show that we have it, because at this point our opponent really can't do anything, and they're just going to scoop because of Rex Term and the rivalry kind of just locking them out of the game. We also do have a lot of damage next turn because of the ability of Rex Term being able to lower their attack points. Now for this final replay, and I want to show how this deck plays going second, and I warn that it's not necessarily the greatest going second. It does have some potential for some back and forth, but a lot of the times you're going to be watching people combo because you don't play much hand traps, and board breakers aren't necessarily the greatest this format, and you're not really maining the Dark Ruler, especially since it doesn't hit the Nor, which happens to be another counter to this deck. So we are going to see that our opponent is going to end on a pretty sizable board here, as they happen to be able to play through the Droll just fine, and we're going to see them go into the Replays+Deck. They'll use the effect of the field spell to bring back the Myrmilio, and then from there they can go into their Redoer as they'll pass to us, and then from here we'll draw a Prosperity. Now from here we could have used the Prosperity straight away, or we could Theresia straight away. I don't think it really mattered in this hand, so our opponent is going to hit us with the Imperm. We're then going to use the Prosperity as we'll then banish 6, and from here we're going to get ourselves, I think, a Frenzy. We do have the Intact in hand, which is sort of nice, but we do get a Pot of Duality off of it, which the Pot of Duality is what ends up getting us the Frenzy, I think. And we do get the Frenzy off the Duality, so sorry for that, but we're going to set 4 now, go on to our opponent's turn, and you can see that we're just still a tad behind here, as our opponent made a slight misplay where they didn't use the redoer on our end phase, and this allows us to intact on their turn without them hitting one of our back row. But you'll see that even then it doesn't matter, because when a deck has gas, it has gas, and Dinomorphia needs a specific setup to counter certain decks, and our opponent does happen to have the Replays+Deck to counter some of our plays here. So we're going to see that they're going to add the Mantis. We'll use the Kentragina, as they're then going to use the Replays+Deck on it, hitting it with the Trap Tricks Nightmare trap hole, I forget the name of it, but we're going to bring back the Diplos, as we're going to use the Diplos effect. And I made a mistake there, I sent the wrong card. I did send Domain, I didn't mean to send a Fusion one, but I couldn't do anything about that because Simulator. So our opponent is going to then normal summon the Mantis, get themselves an add, as they'll get the Dionea. They then have the ability to use the effect of the field spell, and this will force out one of our back row. I chose not to use the Solemn on the Mantis because they had the field spell for the extra summon, so I don't feel it mattered. So we are going to use the Ferret Flames, and that will put the Myrmilio back in deck. And then I made another slight misplay here, maybe, where I Solemn the Dionea, and I felt like either way they were going to have access into a rank 4 because they had the Holtea in the graveyard. But I also felt that if we hit the Dionea, we were also able to prevent damage because they could just bring back the Pudica, which I believe they had in the graveyard. Oh no, they did not. I thought that they had a Disruption in the graveyard, so that definitely kind of influenced my decision a little bit. Even then, I felt like if they went directly into a rank 4, they had the ability to still go into Sarah with the Replays+Deck. There was just so much gas that they had. I feel like no matter what I did, I was losing this one, but they're going to get the effect of the Sarah, which will get them the Trap Tricks Trap Hole. They'll then be able to attack over my monsters, as we're going to use the effect of the Teresia to bring back the Diplos, and then from here we'll go on to our turn as our opponent banishes the Floodgate that was set off the Dionea, I believe, and then we're going to go and attack over the Sarah. Of course, we can't beat it over battle, but we just want to get damage, and I'm just playing out the replay in order to play it out, but our opponent is then going to get the Sarah, and the Myrmilio will be able to pop our last remaining back row, and we'll scoop there. With all of the replays out of the way, we can finally get onto the deck profile, and there's probably a couple of things that you're noticing here. The first being the card with no card art, and this is Chaos Angel. I will have a picture of it on the side. This should be in the main deck for the second Zeus, or you could even maybe take out Dweller or one of your rank 4s, but I think that the other Zeus is probably the best choice. Then we do have some board breakers here that I want to talk about. Going second, especially after siding, you do want to play cards like this so that you have a chance at breaking boards. The Gravedigger's Trap Hole is just here if you happen to feel like you need more copies of Intact in order to stop hand traps. The Anti-Spell is another great side deck option that I would like to talk about this format, as you do have the ability to stop purely plays before they can get going if they don't happen to open a bunch of quick plays in their opening hand. And then you'll see the Fossil Dig and the Misc here, and they're just here because there are chances where you can go second, and having more spells in your deck can be a little bit better because you happen to get into a normal summon or your Frenzy along with the Misc, which just happens to protect you from your opponent's interruptions and lets your plays go through. So it is important to point out that I don't think it's necessarily terrible, but it is something that I am not currently doing myself because I want to be able to play stuff like Rivalry. The other thing that you may notice here is the 2-2 Solemn ratio, which is definitely weird, and I don't even think that you should probably main Solemn. I think that this should go to the side because you're really just hoping to not get Denko'd, which is a problem that this deck definitely does have because the Frenzy happens during your opponent's main phase, while the Domain is something that we're playing at 2 so that we don't clog on all of these, because that is kind of a problem that the deck can have, where you may see some monsters and then you happen to see Frenzy plus Domain, and it's just not necessarily a strong going first hand either. You do get your Rex term, but then it really depends on what your 5th card is. Then you'll see that we also have 3 copies of Intact, and I do think that you do play 3 of it. Being able to protect yourself from battle damage is definitely kind of nice. I think if you play around with the Solemn ratios, something that you could definitely do is a second copy of Sonic and a second copy of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. I'm not so sure on Lord of the Heavenly Prison yet. This also could be the new card, the Wannabe. It really depends on how you want to construct your deck. The Called by the Grave is a flex spot also, so these cards here don't really take too seriously. There's things that can definitely be switched with these cards. Then you'll see that the Ash here is for the Despia matchup. You don't want to get hit with those Masquerades as you're constantly draining your own life points. The Drolls are nice because they do hit a lot of matchups this format, so definitely main deck worthy in my opinion. But with all of that out of the way, I think I'll just get onto the card by card because I don't think I need to do too much more explaining. So we have the 3 Theresia, the 3 Diplos, the 3 Frenzy, the 2 Domain, the 1 Alert, the 2 Ferret Flames, the 1 Brute, the 3 Intact, the 3 Prosperity, and the 3 Duality, the 3 Ash Blossoms and the 3 Drolls, the 3 Rivalry, the 2 Solemn Judgment and the 2 Strikes, the 1 Sonic, the 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison, and the Called by the Grave to round out the main deck. Onto the extra deck, we have the Dweller, we have the number 41, Dolka and Lagia, we have the 2 copies of Zeus, one of them which should be a Chaos Angel, then we have the 3 Stealth, the 3 Kentragina, and the 3 Rex Term to round out the deck profile. But anyways, if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. It's Bones, signing out.